Well, ready or not, here comes Manus, China's world-first fully autonomous AI agent. So the launch of DeepSeek was a massive moment for the American AI industry, and it was described as a Sputnik moment for U.S. AI development, right? The idea that there is a race for AI supremacy, and while U.S. is leading in a lot of ways, China has been shipping some pretty amazing technology. So now, not that long after DeepSeek, we have Manus. Here's a clip that's kind of going viral online. So this is Manus, and it can do a lot of tasks completely automated. Looks like financial transactions, SNS analysis. So I can't verify that video, whether it's legitimate or not from Manus or not. But we do know some people kind of in the industry that have tested it out and have confirmed that a lot of this seems to be true. I mean, this is a real product. So take everything with a grain of salt. This is a developing story, but we can't confirm this is a real product with demos going out to real people that are testing it and are describing it in favorable terms. So this is Leon. I'm not familiar with them. He's from Mobile Capital. So Grok translated this. Today, my screen was flooded with Manus by setting up different agents or workflows that are constantly called by the LLM. They then execute all sorts of work tasks. In essence, it's a Frankenstein stitched together by one person, but it's indeed done very beautifully. For most ordinary people, finding a suitable agent to work with in the vast agent workshop is no small challenge. Manus has effectively solved this problem. Previously, my workflow with DeepSeek plus Daobao/Kimi. So DeepSeek and Kimi were two of the large sort of AI models that we've covered previously, a little bit out of China. So it seems like that workflow seems like it could be now replaced by Manus. Let's try integrating it into an actual production environment. PS, currently for code output in production environments, it's still Claude plus Trey. As shown in this video, today I'm researching more is still using agents to assist with mobile and tasks such as social media matrices or data analysis for wallets, exchanges, and browsers. So what is that? I assume it's like social network servicing, some sort of a research into the various social networks and finding people on there, etc. By the way, the Manus account on Twitter X has been deleted, disabled for the time being. So here's their handle, ManusAI_HQ. That has been disabled. It seems like it might be some weird crypto thing, maybe some sort of a hack, or perhaps it's linked to these sort of autonomous bots on the net. We're still not 100% sure, but for the time being, their account is down on Twitter/X. Rowan Chang from the Rundown AI newsletter has been able to get his hands on it. So he did a few use cases on it that he demonstrates below. We'll take a look at those in a second. But the point is, this is like a real thing that works. It's been launched within the last 24 hours or so, and it seems like it's getting hit with all sorts of difficulties with their launch. But the people that do have their hands on it, that have tested out, seems like they're kind of going crazy for it. Here's their intro video, about 4 minutes long. If you've already seen it, I'll put video chapter, skip to the next one, and check it out.
Hi, I'm Pete from Manus AI. For the past year, we've been quietly building what we believe is the next evolution in AI. And today, we're launching an early preview of Manus, the first general AI agent. This isn't just another chatbot or workflow. It's a truly autonomous agent that bridges the gap between conception and execution. Where other AI stops at generating ideas, Manus delivers results. We see it as the next paradigm of human-machine collaboration, and potentially a glimpse into AGI. Now let me show you Manus in action across 3 completely different tasks. Let's start with an easy one. In this example, we'll ask Manus to help screen resumes. I've just sent Manus a zip file containing 10 resume documents. Since each Manus session has its own computer, it worked like a human. First unzipping the file, then browsing through each resume page by page, and recording important information to documents. Manus works asynchronously in the cloud, which means you can close your laptop anytime, and Manus will notify you when everything is complete. Of course, you can also give Manus new instructions at any time. Here I've sent Manus 5 more resumes. After carefully reading all 15 resumes, Manus provides the ranking suggestions, along with candidate profiles and evaluation criteria as supporting materials. This is pretty good, but I prefer a spreadsheet. Let's have Manus create one. Manus has its own knowledge and memory, so it can teach Manus that the next time it handles a similar task, it will deliver a spreadsheet right away. In this example, we'll have Manus conduct some research. It needs to filter New York properties based on multiple criteria. For complex tasks, Manus first breaks them down and creates a to-do list. Manus begins by searching and carefully reading articles about the safest neighborhoods. Then Manus researches middle schools in New York. Next, Manus writes a Python program to calculate my budget. Based on my budget, Manus filters listings on real estate websites. Finally, combining all the information gathered, Manus writes a detailed report and compiles all the resources. In this example, we have Manus perform a correlation analysis between stocks. For professional data, Manus can access authoritative data sources through APIs. After validating the acquired data, Manus begins writing code for data analysis and visualization. For Manus, coding isn't necessarily the goal, but rather a universal tool for solving problems. It looks like Manus has completed the data analysis and visualization. But interactive data visualization is even cooler, so I asked Manus to create a website based on these data. With my permission, Manus deploys the finished website online and provides me with a shareable link. Let's see what Manus has created. What you've just seen is just a small sample of what Manus can do. In fact, on benchmarks designed to evaluate general AI assistants, an early checkpoint of Manus has already achieved state-of-the-art performance, and it's only getting better. Beyond benchmarks, Manus has been solving real-world problems on platforms like Upwork and Fiverr, and has proven its capabilities on Kaggle competitions. This wouldn't be possible without the amazing open source community, which is why we're committed to giving back. Manus operates as a multi-agent system powered by several distinct models. So later this year, we're going to open source some of these models, specifically post-trained for Manus, inviting everyone to explore this agentic future together. The name Manus comes from the famous motto, mens at manus, mind and hand. It embodies the belief that knowledge must be applied to make a meaningful impact on the world. And this is precisely the promise of Manus AI, to extend your capabilities, amplify your impact, and be the hand that brings your mind's vision into reality. We can't wait to see what you will achieve with Manus.
All right, so this is Mr. Peak, the founder and the chief technical officer, I think they said, of Manus AI. So he says, thanks, Rowan. We just had a Rowan moment, right? As in, we had our second DeepSeek moment. Yeah, so it looks like he's confirming it here, saying that the reason that the X account was suspended was there was some miscommunication about it being related to another account engaging in the crypto scams. So maybe that'll be back online. We'll see. So one thing that stands out to me is the computer that they're using is an Apple computer, but Manus has its own sort of computer in the cloud, and it looks like it's running Ubuntu. It's a Linux distribution, Ubuntu. And as I've mentioned, I've recently had an old computer lying around. I've installed Linux on it, the Ubuntu distribution specifically, and had Claude Coder running it and kind of using the command line to do whatever it needed to install various packages. I was very impressed with how well it did a lot of that stuff. I'm calling it now. I think more and more people will be building on kind of this foundation. So it's going to be a Linux system. The large language model will just operate on the Linux system through the command line. Why is any of this important? Well, the sort of the open source ecosystem for AI is just expanding faster, and it's just so much better than I think most people expected. Both with things like DeepSeek, with this Manus, which again I haven't tested, but it just seems like they got all the parts in correctly. It just seems we'll see how well it actually works. But the point of the fact they're building this on Linux with the thing as sort of like a super user on there doing whatever it needs to. Again, I've seen that with Claude Code. They're kind of doing the same thing. Is absolutely phenomenal because Linux is an open source operating system. So the fact that they're building this outside of Microsoft Windows, outside of Apple's, their environment, their operating system on something that's free for everybody to use, that gives tons of power to the user on an open source operating system. And the fact that they're saying that they're going to be open sourcing some of these models that are fine-tuned to be used with Manus, and that they're going to be doing that later this year. Again, we still have to see how well this thing works and everything else. We have to test it out. But if it's as good as it seems right now from kind of first glance, because keep in mind, it's been less than 24 hours, this thing's been sort of known about to the people, at least here kind of in the US. This means that we might have open source, fully autonomous AI agents that are available for everybody to use before we have access to any of the big proprietary model, before we have access to sort of their AI agents. So again, if this is the case and if everything goes according to plan, that this could be absolutely massive. I'll unpack this more towards the end of the video because I know this is not for everybody, but let's take a look at this agent in particular and what it does. So it looks like after Rowan Chang posted on the Rundown AI, his newsletter, then Peak reached out to him with a sort of invitation code for him to test out. So Rowan asked Manus to create a biography of Rowan Chang and deploy a website based on that biography. Insanely impressive watching it go through my social channels, browse articles, and deploy the site. And it was 100% accurate. Info up to date as of today. So it's a little bit hard to see the video on X. But as you can see here, so there's sort of two windows on the left. We have it kind of telling you what it's doing. So it's browsing, it's writing up. So similar to kind of the normal chatbot interface, it's kind of just talking you through what it's doing. I'd be curious how fast this is. This might be like 10x speed up or something like that. But the right side is kind of where I think the magic is happening. So again, it's running on Linux. It looks like first and foremost, it receives the direction from Rowan about writing his autobiography. It quickly creates a folder that it's going to call research and a few other folders with like the to-do sheets, etc. So it opens up that folder. So you give it a project, it creates a folder for that project, and it begins working within that folder on that project. And Claude Coder does something very, very similar. It creates a to-do file for itself. So it's doing that completely autonomously, right? So it's hard to read what it actually says, but it's like, step one, research on Rowan Chang, and it breaks it down into subtasks, right? So search for him on LinkedIn, on the web, gather info about professional background, education, project and achievements, personal interests, right? Then it creates the biography, right? And it's got subtasks for that. Then it does website development and it has the subtasks for that. Again, I know this is very hard to see because I'm like zooming in. It's a 720p resolution. That's because of how Twitter works. But so far, everything's feeling pretty impressive. All right. So next, it imports the tools that it's going to need to do this thing. So it's trying to use the API to do research, looks like on LinkedIn, and then saving it in a JSON format. So you get what it's doing. It's like, okay, I need to go do research on LinkedIn. For that, I'm going to need these sort of tools, these APIs, and this is where we're going to save the file. So it creates all that, then does the research, and then saves it to a file into that sort of project folder that it's doing. It goes through, it creates a list of all the places where he's mentioned, right? And it goes to those websites and starts kind of reading through it to gather various data on Twitter, X, all sorts of other stuff. It looks like it found some like personal stuff, non-business related stuff. I'm not going to show it here, but it's very thorough. It creates a new directory for the biography and then actually goes and writes out that biography as a file. The fact that it's running on Linux is going to make it lightning fast for a lot of these tasks. Now it's creating the Rowan portfolio. So notice it's using Cloudflare. It's installing whatever dependencies it's going to need. It's installing a Git repository, so from GitHub. So it's installing and downloading all the software, whatever else it needs to create that website. And if it's running into any issues, it's troubleshooting them. I mean, this is what an autonomous AI agent is supposed to be. I mean, this is it. Again, we have to test it out. I don't know how good it is actually, but it seems like it's doing everything right. And this is it. This is what we might have later this year open source to us. This looks like it makes the web page in HTML. So like designs and codes up the web page. It's very difficult to see, but it's looking like it's just kind of like typing up the HTML to create that web page. Here it runs npm run dev, so it creates like a development server, right? So something where you're able to see a live web page locally on your computer, but in the same way that you would if it was hosted online. So it actually creates that development server, puts the web page it created in that server so that it's able to, I assume it's going to be able to look at it and see how it looks, or at least present it to Rowan as a project deliverable. And yeah, here it is. So it's kind of showing locally, but here's the completed working web page. It finds some build error, something failed to compile. So I assume, goes through and checks it and fixes it. This is a little bit mind-blowing. Yes. Can we agree that this is, again, assuming this is all legit, which it really sounds like it is. I mean, this is a request that Rowan ran through it. So it seems like, and this is like a replay of it. So everything seems legit, but as you can see here, it's almost done. It's done with, 90% of the tasks and subtasks that it's set for itself. The next step is to deploy the website. So it creates kind of the optimized build of that portfolio, calls it 1.0, and shares it with the user. It looks like it can't be found. The page can't be found. Rowan says it can't be found. So it tells the agent the problem. It starts troubleshooting it. Looks like here it needs permission to deploy that to the public network, right? So you have to click agree or accept in order to continue. So to host it on a web hosting platform, and boom, it's posted live for everyone to see. Here's kind of what that looks like. I mean, it's a web page. Next, we're asking it to find a room to rent in San Francisco for 6 months. So it starts once again. It creates a sort of folder. That's going to be the project folder where it puts everything that you need for that project, breaks everything into subtasks and sub goals. One of the things Rowan is asking for is somewhere in San Francisco where crime is low, which is true. If you ever travel to San Francisco, you got to stay out of the designated PvP areas. But one of the tasks for Manus is analyze crime statistics, gather crime statistics for different neighborhoods, and then sort of like match that with the user's criteria. And there's other sort of requests like there's got to be a lot of AI stuff happening. And there's other sort of like things that Rowan's looking for that it's trying to figure out. Finds the low crime sort of safest neighborhoods and writes out a full report. Next request is to build out a full sort of AI course on sort of AI development. So it builds the full outline, generates everything it needs to, creates all the modules. And here's sort of what that's looking like, right? So you've got a complete walkthrough with all so I think this is for like Midjourney, I believe. But here's kind of like the full course outline. And apparently it beats a lot of the OpenAI deep research at the Gaia benchmark. So if we're doing research online, as you can see here on most of them, it beats them by quite a lot. So this is really exciting. It looks like they got hit pretty hard. They don't have a lot of servers to support the massive demand that they're seeing. They only had enough to kind of do a basic demonstration. It seems like it kind of like really went viral. It looks like there was a big wave in China, and now sort of the US is beginning to get it in on it as well. So this is in the last 24 hours, more and more people are talking about it. So to me, this is very exciting. If I have a footage of the Claude Coder that I have from doing it on my other computer, I'll post it here. This is Anthropic's Claude Coder, and Claude Coder operates very similar in that it's able to run whatever it needs to run in the command line on Linux. So if it needs to install new packages, it can do that. If it needs to create a new folder, it can do that, create new files. Pretty much most of the things, like whatever you think it should be able to do, it can create a development server so that you can see kind of the application or the website you're trying to develop. You can just see it there in real time on your computer. And I can't predict the future. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. But, a lot of this seems like as these AI technologies are going to be getting smarter and better and more capable, you can do a lot of stuff just through the command line. A lot of the software that's created, it's sort of, they have a nice UI and a lot of these features that's more tailored towards like human use and sort of not really even like expert human use, right? So it's just sort of for everybody to be able to figure it out and how to use it. So a lot of it is kind of just fluff that's added on top of sort of like the foundational things that the computer can do. And that's there sort of for our benefit, right? So we can see things and click on it, etc. Right. So if you're trying to create a new folder where you're going to store stuff, you go to the folder in which you want to create that folder, right? You right click and then say make new folder, or however you do that, right? Then you go in there and you create a little file in that. Well, in the command line, there's just one line and it does everything. And you have a lot more ability to like customize it and say exactly how you want to create it. And that's difficult to do for non-expert tech users because you have to kind of keep all those commands in your head. And actually with my new Linux install, I just sit there, with ChatGPT open, just asking, what do I need to do X? And it just goes line by line. Right, so this is a good example, right? So into ChatGPT, I say how to install OBS on Ubuntu, and I spell Ubuntu wrong. But OBS is a streaming software. Ubuntu is that Linux sort of version, like flavor. There's a couple different ones, and so it goes through. Okay, first type this command, right? Then type this command to install dependencies. Then type this and this and this and this, right? Then run it using this, right? Then I have some issue with the camera, so I'm like, okay, how do I fix that? And it gives me a couple commands to run to figure out what's happening. And at the end of that process, if I do everything correctly, then I have a fully working software that I wanted. But here's the thing with Claude Coder, you just tell it what you want. It runs all the commands. It sets everything up. It troubleshoots everything. So you no longer need a user-friendly UI. You no longer need all the stuff that's kind of built on top of it because it just at the core of the system just installs and does everything that you need it to do. So if you think through the implications of stuff like this, number one, it's displacing a lot of people's jobs, right? So think about it. This thing gets good enough. How many people could an autonomous AI agent like that, how many people could it displace, make redundant or obsolete, whatever you want to call it? But I think that's fairly obvious, I think, to most people. People are beginning to understand that that's the case. But in terms of, selling software, right, designing and building and selling software, I mean, you saw how it just built the website and just hosted online, did all the things. For the first time in my life the other day, I was going to Google because I need a simple application that did this one simple little thing that I needed to do that had a kind of a graphic user interface. And I was about to go on Google or somewhere else to search for it to see if it existed. And I kind of stopped myself and I went, wait a minute, let me just put this into Claude and see if it can do it. And, 20, 30 seconds later, I had the code, I ran it, and it was the application that I was looking for. All right. So if I needed a piece of software, we're getting to the point where the really simple ones, it would be almost faster to have one of these chatbots created for you rather than go online looking for one. As they get better and better, it might become more of a thing where software as a service is also impacted because people will opt to create the software that they need for their very own special use case. Right? You want a video editor? Well, there's a number of them out on the market, depending on what you're looking for, what functions you need, etc. But if you could just create your own with just only the functions that you needed, right? You can do it for free. Maybe it'll take the AI assistant to do 10 minutes to code it up and test it and make sure it's working. And if you have the same workflow each time, it might not even have a user interface. If you're just I need this thing to where I upload it and does 1, 2, 3, 4 things on it in this sequence and then outputs the final file, you might not even need a user interface, right? You just give it the file and a few minutes later, the polish end result gets spit out. Adobe brings in $5.6 billion. There's probably very, very few individuals that use every aspect and every function of everything. Most people, it's kind of this 80-20 thing, right? So they might only need 20% of the tools to do the thing that they're trying to do. And even to do those things, they have to sort of learn how to use that software. As these AI assistants, as they get better at coding, it might be that you just speak with, natural language in English, what you want the thing to do. And it creates your own custom software, right? So software is no longer going to be this one thing for the masses. It's going to be kind of custom coded for you, for your specific use case. So obviously this is not going to happen overnight, right? But it will be interesting to see what kind of effect this has on software as a service type companies. This stuff seems like it's really going to impact, places like Google, a lot of the places where you find your information online, etc., doing research and stuff like that. It seems like it's already better than deep research. I'm personally using deep research from OpenAI on a daily basis. It's been incredibly good, right? If they're able to improve on it with this sort of framework with these AI agents, I guess I wouldn't be surprised, but it will be certainly a phenomenal step forward. So this is manus.im. Their website doesn't show up too well in dark mode, but so you can do analysis of various stocks, compare various insurance policies, plan your trip to Japan, B2B supplier sourcing, list of Y Combinator companies, online store operation analysis, a professional teleprompter that features adjustable speed, scalable fonts, and enhanced readability. So the point here is something like this is coming. They said they're going to open source it hopefully this year. Whether they do it or somebody else does it, it doesn't really matter. The point is, at some point it's going to happen, unless, for example, the U.S. government and other nations sort of put a regulation to prevent open source stuff like this. Something like this is coming. And it's going to be running on open source operating systems. And it's absolutely mind-blowing, I think. So I don't want to hype it too much, but be aware that it really looks like this thing is coming. AI agents, we saw OpenAI announce their AI agents at, $20,000 a month at the high end. What happens if sort of that has to compete with the open source stuff? How well is that pricing going to hold up? It's going to be interesting to see. Maybe there's going to be more kind of custom made for large enterprises, and this is sort of for the rest of the people, for small businesses, for people kind of working on their own stuff, etc. But exciting times ahead. If you wanted to be a little bit ahead of the curve, one thing that you should maybe consider thinking about doing is if you have some laptop or computer lying around somewhere in the house, it has to be something that you can install an operating system on. So it can't be an Apple device. It can't be a Chromebook. but dust it off and install Linux on it. Linux is free. It's an operating system that's completely free. It doesn't have any nonsense, like you don't have to type in your email. It's just a beautiful open source software that is just wonderfulness all around. And again, 5, 10, 15 years ago, it was a lot more difficult to use. Obviously not for people that are experienced in kind of working in the tech field, etc. But for most newcomers, it just wasn't that user-friendly. Now it's getting, number one, just a lot easier to install. And number two, with stuff like ChatGPT, and, you can use Anthropic or I haven't tested on Anthropic or Grok or anything like that. But, ChatGPT 4.0 does great. It can walk you through pretty much anything. There's a number of different distributions or flavors, different sort of versions of it. They're all built on top of Linux. There's sort of different versions of the operating system depending on what you need. I installed Ubuntu, and it looks like that Manus thing is also running on Ubuntu. It really doesn't matter, but if you wanted to try it out, ask ChatGPT how to do it. You have to go to their official website. You just download this thing. You need one of those USB thumb drives, so something that looks like this. I think the whole thing is, I think it's either 6 or 7 gigs, so probably use at least 8, but it's very inexpensive. So what you need to do is you got to put the installation file, the ISO file on this thing. I used Rufus, again, free, open source. You just download it. You don't need to install anything. You don't need to give anybody your email. It's just you click download, and there it is. It looks like this. ChatGPT can walk you through doing that. And so basically it formats this USB drive for, I just realized that that person is right above me. But this is then sort of turned into a boot drive. So you just put it into your computer. You restart your computer, you hit delete or F12 or F7, whatever gets you to the BIOS, the startup, where you can select what you want to boot it from. You boot it from this thing. Again, ChatGPT is your friend, and the rest is super simple, right? So it just says, do you want to install Ubuntu? You say yes, you select some options, and pretty much done. It takes about 10 minutes. The desktop looks very similar to anything else. It's pretty much the same, right? Some differences, but you'll figure it out. The big difference is most of the stuff you're going to be doing from the command line. And again, this used to be kind of, I don't want to say difficult, but it had a bit of a learning curve because there's tons of commands that you have to remember or have like a little cheat sheet, even to navigate around the different directories. You're always typing things like ls, cd, mkdir, whatever to make directories. So you kind of have to remember how to write it. But again, ChatGPT or whatever chatbot you're using is your friend here. You just ask it questions. It gives you all the commands. You can copy and paste it directly into the terminal as you're doing it. I forgot to mention, you can actually also create this on the same desktop that you're using. So if you have Windows installed and you have extra space, you can actually install it as another operating system and tell it how much space to kind of use for that OS. So you can do that as well. And there's a lot of awesome things that you can do with it that might be difficult to do in other environments. For example, you can install Claude Coder. And installing Claude Coder is very simple. Again, you're just running these commands. This is from Anthropic, right? You run 1, 2, 3. And then it's launched, and then you talk to it just like you would to a chatbot. But the difference here is it's able to run a lot of these commands for you. I have a video coming about kind of some things to try out. But if you have some time to spare and you're interested into getting into this, again, all of this is free. Well, for Claude Coder, you have to pay for the tokens that you use to Anthropic, but everything else is absolutely free. And it seems like a lot of the stuff is heading in that direction. So might be a good time to brush up on it just a little bit. But let me know what you think about this Manus thing. Does it look pretty cool? Does it seem like it's going to be pretty powerful? Let me know in the comments. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. My name is Wes Roth, and I'll see you next time.